Hey guys, Santoli here, bringing you a Dracotail deck list slash discussion about how to build this deck and look forward about lists and kind of starting blocks with this deck list going into next format. So this is the deck I've been spending time on for probably the last 2 weeks, just fiddling around with it. Yes, there are other decks I want to try as well, but I think this was one of the obvious starting points because it seemed like it was a decent deck, especially with OCG results. It was never the best deck, but it definitely was a deck that had results, and I want to see how far I could really push it. See if it was really a top contender or if it's sitting somewhere in tier two. And overall, after playing it for 2 weeks as well as two case tourneys this last weekend, I will comfortably say it is tier two. It is functional deck by all means, but it does have a bit of a matchup issue. If you play into Yummy and Mitsu, you feel very happy. The deck feels very, very good. If you play into Malice and VS, it is a lot worse. And even in the good matchups, you still have a chance of just kind of lowering yourself. So before we talk about bit more about the deck and the functions of it and the strengths of it. We'll go through the list of it. So you have your standard starters. So you have the three of both the good names, as well as three of both good spells. This is really standard. You play three Phenma. This is the quick fusion. This is the really good card, the engine hand trap that you really like to play. I decided to play an extra Urgula. So one big thing with this deck to keep in mind is that this, although it is a one card combo deck in the sense that all your starters, or I guess 1.5 card combo deck, all your starters work with just them as the only engine piece. You really do want to open 2 card combos or 3 card combos. When you're doing your first fusion summon, you really do want to use 2 Dragon Tail names because then you just plus really hard off those. If you're only doing one, you do have combos like that, but it just feels so much worse. It's a lot easier to get choked out by hand traps or just go overrun by a big board. I originally was playing 2 and 2 at the first case tourney I played at. The one thing is you don't actually want a hard drop pan. The engine heavy hands, what you can do to beat the canine cards or VS cards is actually hold the pan as well as the Phenema fuse, so that if your opponent tries to play on your own turn, you could just chain the Phenema and discard pan and it'll just pop whatever it's summoned. This also works into Holy Sue, where they go Holy Sue, you chain Phenema, use the pan to fusion summon, they summon the Holy Sue. They go effect special summon. Your chain one, I guess, would be pan. Chain two, Holy Sue summon. They summon whatever they want, and you just pop it immediately. They don't get the effects. So it does have good resistance like that. Where I think this is one of the few decks that can really deal with VS doing Holy Sue on your first turn. It does have a good answer to that. That being said, you do need open edge, you have the hand to do that. And you don't want to use this guy as one of your fusion materials when you're comboing just because of that reason. The Urgla, you're happy using early on, especially because it does have the grave effect to add back. So if you hard draw this and you're sending it to the grave, you do have the ability to just have good follow up or good hand card advantage just like that. The other cards in the deck, the traps are pretty standard. I was playing King of the Swamp initially, playing King of Swamps and one Poly, just an extra form of consistency. That card kind of solves the issue of some of the decks. The biggest issue with this deck is just your bad hand's really bad. Like I said earlier, you really want to start fusing with 2 of the Dragon monsters immediately. When you don't have the ability to do that, it just feels rough. And Swamp kind of helps with that. If there's only be hands where you open like one way to fuse, so say you open Lucas and one other name that's not Phenema, and so you go Lucas attempt to add Phenema, and then it gets Ash. Then this is the hands where King of the Swamp feels really good because you can go King of the Swamp, add, immediately fuse with 2 of the names. It feels great. However, if instead you have a way of fusing, but you don't have a second Dragon Tail name, then say Lucas plus Rahu plus Swamp, the Rahu gets Ash. Now the King of Swamp, while it does let you play, doesn't feel amazing by any means. I guess in that hand, actually, the Lucas would search it, but let's say you have another name like Milulu or something. The King of Swamp would not be solving the issue with the deck there. So it does help some of your bad hands, but it doesn't help with all of them. And so going forward, maybe I'd try Prosperity, consider out, but I think that this deck just kind of issue with engine and what it wants to do, and having that last kind of piece of engine missing that just makes this deck a lot more resilient going first. Other things to make note of is the non-engine. I'm really happy with the hand trap lineup. I was usually playing Prulias in the main. I don't think this card is amazing going to the next format. I think the biggest problem is it's just so awful into Yummy, as well as this deck, which is somewhat popular, I think, that I wanted to go to the side deck, as well as you don't want too many Tummies in the main. I find there's a lot more hand trap wars now with Malice Malice always existing, as well as Yummy just giving 0 draws and having a bunch of tech cards to back it up. So this is the hand trap lineup I liked. The Nibs, Ashes, Azuna, and Fu aren't that surprising. The Veils is a bit surprising because I don't think this card's insane this format, but it just felt so good when paired. I had a lot of people push into a Chummy challenge, and they just got punished immediately because I would use one of my blowout cards on going second, like the Azuna, the Nib, or the Venema, and then they'd have Ripper to stop it, and then the Veil would just stop the Ripper, and then they just get taken by surprise. People are really ignorant about that. This format, they feel if they have Ripper on the board, they can just do whatever they want and execute as much as they want, and Veil is just kind of a good check to them, punishing them for that. This is a lot of the K9 decks have the problems of older decks where they're not playing through hand traps. What they're doing is they're just setting up Omni to answer the hand trap. And so as soon as you start layering them, it feels a lot more punishing. The other nice thing about Veil is it's not once per turn, so once you start playing, you are able to add it back off the Arthurian. Last card playing the main was the Fenrir. This card's really good in the deck because, well, one, it's Fenrir, and this is a card that I thought got power crept, and then I realized actually didn't get power crept at all. Actually, it just existed in the format. And now that Mitsu and Razor are a lot less popular, this card actually trades really well into a lot of the other decks of the format. And the big thing is it lets you add a card in your hand to fusion summon, which means you can just summon this, have it as form interruption. It's decent going second in some of the decks, especially when you hand trap them, or you show me them and they make half boards. But also just gives you the hand advantage to freely fuse things away if you need to. This could be something else, as we'll get to the side deck. I'm not going to spend too much time in the side deck. The other Chinese are there for the matchups they really want them. I think Pankratops is a very good card in the format. You really need to answer Herald versus Yummy. I think that's like the only card that you're really, really scared of against that deck. Everything else you can push through very comfortably. And the extra deck I was really happy with overall. 3 Altharion is basically mandatory. You will be going through this a lot of times as well. You'll be using more than one monster in the hand. This card adds cards back, monsters from either player's grave or field, to the hand when some equal number of monsters used in the hand. And so there's a lot of games where you're going to be using 2+ in the hand and just getting a multiple add back to 6 of your hand, re-add hand traps, and win like that. One Gomel, you only need one. You need to play both of these. So Mysterion the Dragon Crown is just a good interruption. If your opponent special summons a monster using its own activate effect, or summons one with the same original type, you can target one of those monsters, banish it. It's very good, as well as stopping the Holy Suit or Azuna turn 0. This is what you would go into if they try doing those plays with Thinema. You'd use Pan and a Spellcaster. Make this. This will clear the Holy Suit body. The Pan will clear whatever they summon off Holy Suit. It was a good answer like this. Secretarian Dragon. This is a card people freaked out about a lot because it's Floodgate, but the Floodgate effect is like completely useless. It stops all special summoned effects of dragons or spellcasters on the board, but it's basically just for the mirror match. But this mirror match has like so many ways of just immediately answering it, like hard drawing any of these in a way to fuse, or any of the spells immediately get you access to one of these. It just gets, you know, immediately negated or blown up. The big thing, though, is it lets you revive a spellcaster or dragon from your grave. So a lot of hands when you open Malulu and Lucas, you want to know Malulu because you're not losing Ash or Purge like that. You fusion summon, make this, and then you can revive Lucas and still get the search like that. You have the standard links. Cross Sheep is mandatory in the deck. What you will do on follow up a lot of times is just link 2 bodies into Cross Sheep. Because 2 bodies are sent to the grave, you're able to revive one of these, and then once you revive one of these with their own effect, Cross Sheep will trigger, reviving back your Lucas or your Malulu and get you back to engine that way. IP is just extra board. It actually didn't come up that much. This might be the one flex spell you can cut. Then the Canine cards. I think the Canine cards are really good in this deck. The whole premise of this deck is you're trying to play turn 0, and even when you have you're looking at the tech cards of the format, you're really trying to layer them. Veil is a card that layers well with Azuna or Nib or Phantom, or Nib also layers well with either of these two. And the other thing is this deck isn't the most consistent thing in the world, and you're going to be having some games where you just play Canine control, and that's fine. The Canine cards will get you there sometimes, especially when you back it up with a large amount of hand traps. The Ripper is good just because it lets you insulate your board if you're going first. Then getting double hand trap. Triple hand trap still works, obviously, but it will stop the double ones, and you're just adding another Zuna for the follow up on their turn. Other than the Nash Knight package, I decided to play the C101 and the 107 just because I think that the Umbral stuff is a bit more gimmicky. I think it's number 1. I've never really spent much time with it. I never liked it from the beginning. I think the big thing is when you're playing Canine Control, you want to have your C numbers be able to go second really well, which is what these ones do. If you are just passing and using them as interruptions, I think just sitting on Nash Knight's the best one in interruption. And Typhon because this is playing a hand trap deck. So, like I said earlier, this deck feels kind of tier 2-ish. What are the big strengths of the deck? What are the big weaknesses? The big strength of the deck is just how good this deck is into half boards. This deck is very good at forcing half boards because you have a lot of hand traps that trade well. And once they're in half boards, these spells are just complete and utter blowouts. The non-targeting pop for both monsters and spells, as well as the negate, is just so oppressive because both these cards let you get to it. And there are a lot of games where my opponent is making a half board with 5 interruptions, and I'm activating one of these, and I'm burning through like 4 interruptions to one chain. And what will generally happen is if you think of the common end board, where they have Ripper plus the quick play plus maybe Nash Knight, if I'm activating one of the spells, I'm sending Pan. Hopefully, I'm sending another Dracotail to chain block. I'm going to go 1 Panda Pop. I'm going to go 2 Ethereum, target the Nash Knight or the cast number they may have ranked up into. And then number 3 will be the other Dracotail. The Dracotail gets stopped by the Ripper. They'll try to rank up as well. And what's going to happen is they'll pop this thing, which you don't actually care about because it's going to clear the C number or Nash Knight, which is fine. They're going to summon the rank 9 K9, and you're just going to pop it immediately, and then the C number will get bounced anyways, as well as you'll get this resolving, which means you'll be able to set the other spell. And so that's a very good example of the K9 board, which is somewhat annoying to deal with, getting cleared up by 2 cards. And there are other game states that this can exist in. If your Yummy opponent is ending on the Yummy board with no hero, let's say they got nibbed, let's say they be in school and they don't have it up immediately, or let's say you let Pankratops is able to clear it. Again, the spells are just super, super good at chewing through these mid-range boards. And this is when the deck feels at its best, is getting those game states where you are able to push through these zap boards. This is not a win card combo deck. This is a deck that wants to thrive in not super complicated game states, but you're going for 2-3 card trades. Is where you're really able to blow your opponent out. The problem with this deck is when you're not able to go through that and you're forced to do 1-for-1 trades. It does have a little bit consistency issues, and your bad hands just feel rough. The hands where you're only opening one Dracotail and have to fuse like that, yes, you can combo, but the board is very weak and you're able to get gas through a lot. The other problem with it is that the traps in the deck are very exploitable. They need to resolve their effects to actually get the draw off them. If you get Purge, Bell, or Ash on these cards, they also do nothing, which means they can just hold hand traps for their turn and really push through your board really easily, which is the biggest concern. This deck reminds me a lot of Voiceless, just in terms of kind of the strategy of you're getting one Ritual Summon or Infusion Summon off, and you're getting a lot of the board that way. But when you open all engine hands with Voiceless, at least the good hands, you're opening a lot of interruptions. This deck doesn't feel the same way. You really are ending on a really limited number of interruptions, which is a problem. You just can't get more out of it. And the other issue, it always just feels like this deck can get high rolled. Kind of both ends of the bell curve of this deck are bad. And what I mean by that is that the really bad hands with this deck feel bad, like they're just rough because you just don't have enough interruptions, and the really good hands just aren't good enough either. If you open a really strong hand and your opponent just opens, Ash, Bell plus good engine, like you will get out high rolled. And the fact that when you have both ends of the spectrum just feeling rough, it's kind of makes me worry about the overall strength of the deck. Like I said, it's still fine. The kind of the middle of the bell curve where you're just both players are opening decent is where this deck shines, where you're able to kind of stop them a little bit and then just crack with the power spells of the deck. But that is my biggest concern with that, and that's not a weakness I think you can solve with deck building, especially the lower end of the curve. I don't think there's any other good cards or consistency cards you can have to really help the bad hands out. So that's something you can deal with. That you'll have to deal with. As for making the better boards or your good hands better, one thing you can do and consider is kind of the Fenrir for Shaddoll cards. I'm not sure how I feel about this. The Fenrirs are good going second. They're also good in hand trap wars. Shadolls are kind of similar to the King of Swamp issue, where Swamp is good when you have 2 Dragontail names and you need a way to fuse. Wind is good when Winda and the Shaddoll cards are good when you have a way to fuse and you just need more good monsters. And the problem is that, yes, it's going to help with the scenarios. I'm going to resolve a fusion and have Shaddoll cards and be able to make a much stronger board, have much better advantage that way. But the problem is when you aren't able to fuse and they're just cards that do nothing and you just get run over immediately. So it's something worth testing, but I'm not super high on them. I think they may be fine, but I don't think they solve the issues of the deck. And a bigger K9 package, I also think is just awful. There's no synergy in the deck, and there's just too many, bad combinations where the Joker's not going to do anything unless you're drawing in pair with something else, and it's very easy to not draw those pairs. So overall, this is kind of my thoughts on Dracotail, as well as my basic deck list for you guys to experiment with. I think there are as well some other more heavy combo versions like the Vanilla version, but that is not my playstyle. I like my mid-range decks, so this is where I am at for now with the deck list. If you have any comments about the deck list, what you found for tech cards that work for you, leave it in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe, as well as bring up any other decks you want me to explore. We are going into a bit of a new format, as well as a lot of new decks coming out, new hybrids. So if there's anything you want me to explore, feel free to leave in the description, and I will try to get on those as well. Thanks.